Okay, I cannot tell if. Hello, hello. Are we on the air? Are we on the air? Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Point Live. I am one half of the hosting crew, Felica Tripp, and there's my girl.
Joanna Archie.
I'm like,
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
hello, world. Okay, so today, you guys, I would like to introduce you all to the fabulous, wonderful, beautiful Miss Junkia Rose. Hello, Junkia. How are you?
Mother, you gotta mute your mic. How you doing? Hey. I think I sound echoey.
Oh, very echoey. Very echoey. Okay. Okay. Is that better?
Something kind of toned down a little bit.
Uh-oh. Okay. So, you guys, we have Junkia Rose, and she is a fabulous artist, singer. Actually, the song that just came on, Dove, she is the artist singing on there. And I want you guys to know more about her EP that's recently been released. Junkia, do we have you back on?
Yes, I am here, but I still hear myself as an echo.
Okay. Okay, what about now?
Okay. Kinda.
Okay, is that better?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Okay, there we go.
All right, excellent. So tell everyone about the song and about your EP and about yourself.
Yeah, okay. So I, Junkia Rose, and I started back singing maybe about 4 or 5 years ago. So this is my second EP. This will be the first EP that I did without a without my agency, without my company, without being under a publishing company. So I did it all independently. Me and my husband actually produced this album. He produced it completely. We wrote it together. We did it all solo, and I did it throughout this year, actually throughout my pregnancy with my son Hunzer. And that song Dove that we were just listening to is actually a song that's pretty much about him. The name of the album is Rain Rose, Bones to Bury. Rain Rose is just pretty much like an alter ego from Junkia Rose. It's this just different side. You get to go into different journal entries of mine, of my feelings and emotions. And that's kind of what took me away from music in the first place, which is being vulnerable. I'm not a fan of being vulnerable. So Junkia Rose is you kind of get the face value type of music, and then when you have Rain Rose music, you kind of get a little deeper into feelings and emotions and everything above and all of me. So that's kind of what that is. And the Bones to Bury project, it's just a lot of diary entries of what I've gone throughout this year, and it talks about relationships, it talks about love, it talks about self-love, and just that whole little journey. So it came out on Christmas. It was my Christmas gift to myself, and I hope that you guys you enjoy it and you stream it. It is now streaming on all platforms, so you can definitely check it out on Apple Music, on Spotify, on Tidal, whatever you use for your music streaming.
Excellent, excellent. And again, thank you for allowing us to use it. I love, love, love every song on there. I know we started with Dove, but I want everyone, you are Mississippi homegrown.
Yes.
Junkia Rose, check her out, Apple Music Play. And thank you so much for joining us
Thank you.
here. So, you guys, we are back. And I just want to, again, welcome our guest. We have In the studio today, we have Miss Melissa Rose. Actually, she's mother to the artist Junkia Rose. Melissa, would you introduce yourself to the listening audience? Oh, we can't hear
I
you.
think her mic is muted.
Need you to unmute your mic.
Is it better?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay,
Excellent.
so I am Melissa Rose. I am mother to the artist that just spoke. Yes, I am also an educational counseling psychologist. I live in Las Vegas, Nevada. So yeah, anything else? I am a native of Mississippi,
Excellent.
Jackson,
Excellent.
Mississippi.
Okay. And we also have joining us today Mr. Keelan Sanders.
Hi, how you doing?
Hey, Keelan.
Hi, it's a pleasure to be here tonight.
Introduce yourself to the listening audience.
I'm Keelan Sanders, former executive director of the Mississippi Democratic Party. Been in politics and a consultant for over 20 years.
Excellent. You guys, we have Keelan on tonight. We're going to be discussing how, as we talk about guns, violence, and legislation, we're going to be talking about how the redistricting lines can affect this and other legislation as well. So Keelan is joining us to tap in on that subject with his expertise. So thank you so much. And Miss Joanna Archie, how are you today?
I am good. What about you?
Oh, if it were any better, I wouldn't even be able to stand it.
Oh, well, your hair looked great. I told you that earlier. It's gorgeous.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Go big or go home. That's what they say.
It looks good.
So, one thing I know, I live in Jackson, Mississippi, or
Hmm.
I live in the
Right.
vicinity of the greater Jackson metropolitan area.
Right.
And Melissa, you're in Las Vegas right now, correct?
Yes,
So,
Las Vegas.
yes.
yes.
And Junkia, she was just on, she's in California. And no matter where you are, I think everyone who lives near urban area right now is experiencing a rise in violent crimes. And in Jackson, Mississippi is especially disturbing because the population is so small. So it seems like it's astronomical in comparison to places like New York or wherever, because again, Mississippi only has one city with a population that exceeds 100,000. I think that is still the case. So it's very disturbing to see that in Jackson there were 150 murders, but it's not an isolated incident. America as a whole has an increase in the amount of murders taking place. From I don't care which city you name, these numbers are going up in urban population. So another disturbing factor of that with the murder rate of blacks, 80 to 90% in every one of those cities, they're killed by other blacks. Now, we've spoken on the show in previous weeks about the myth of black on black crime. I believe that the myth is that it's black on black crime because you don't hear about white on white, so on and so forth. But black people are killing black people. And we want to talk about why that is, what is escalating those numbers, and how it's affecting our children. Melissa, you mentioned the fact that you work with children, you're in psychology, you work in the schools. Tell me some of the issues that surround some of the schools that you've worked with and some of the children as it pertains to gun violence.
Well, what we're seeing now, as far as the past couple of years, is there are a lot of suicides. There are a lot of gun violence going on in the school districts. I mean, and it's not just in high school; it's elementary, middle, and high school. Um, and I, as in my opinion, and as far as research and what we read is, and what we learned is. the sadness that come over us. There's sadness. There's a lot of things that you can say is a factor, but one of the things is we are going through COVID. We're going through a pandemic, and that in of itself is a huge factor. That by itself, a lot of people won't, look at it as if that's a negative thing, because you get to go home, you get to work from home, go to school from home sometimes, and now, of course, we're back in school. Well, kids don't know how to process all of this. It's a lot at once for an adult. So just imagine what a child is going through, how they're processing this information, like what is really going on in this world. A lot of them are afraid. A lot of them are, have anxiety issues. A lot of them are going through a lot of other issues. And that could lead to, if you're frightened, just imagine all of the other issues that are already there: bullying, um, self confidence, everything that's already underlying, paired with what we're going through now, can just send your whole internal into a frenzy. So imagine that happening to children. You know what I
Absolutely.
mean?
Absolutely.
So that's my perspective. That's what I think is going on, and of course, guns. Let's just talk about that. Guns are so much more available now than they were a couple of years ago, or 3 or 4 years ago. And so that doesn't mean, you have parents in the home that may not lock up their guns, or not exercise safety when it comes to guns. So these children, this is not new. Children
Right.
have been getting to their parents' guns, getting to, whoever guns whatever guns in the house. They get to it. But I'm saying now, because of all these other issues, and then the gun issue, with them thinking, certain states it's okay for guns, and so kids are looking at that. They're more curious now. So
Absolutely.
it's just there are a lot of factors that go. It just saddens my heart, actually, to think about the murders. I mean, it's not new, but it's increasing. And we wanted to know, I remember reading or listening to one of your broadcasts that says, "Is this our new normal? Is
Right.
this our new normal? Are the murders are going to increase by January, for murders to be 80 in January, and then we're just 3 or 4 days into January? How is that possible? Why is that possible?
Well,
That's a lot of crime."
absolutely. Now, Joanna, you work in law enforcement. Joanna's worked as a police officer. She's an investigator right now. Give me your take.
I'm sorry, Felicia. My son called with something. I've been on the phone. I did hear you all. Let's go to Keelan real quick, and I'm gonna come back in. Okay, I am so sorry.
Okay. So I'm going to play a short clip. It is from ABC News. This was from 5 months ago, as they talked about gun violence being on the rise as states reopen.
It should have been a celebration. The Bucks winning an NBA championship. Instead, gunshots, chaos, people running for their lives.
Where do we go? Where do we go?
Part of the chronic gun violence epidemic surging in recent months. The map shows it all unfolding. More than 1,000 incidents, more than 430 dead, 1,000 wounded in 1 week.
3-2. Swing and a miss.
We saw it begin last Saturday
8-4.
as we started our investigation. Gunshots outside of Nationals Park. That same night, a mother and her baby caught in the crossfire in a corner store in West Philadelphia, wounding the 1-year-old.
I'm tired of this. I'm sick and tired of this.
Day after day, we saw so many children affected by this violence. One boy shot in a bedroom.
The bullet just went through the wall, went through his head.
Christian Jaden Rosas in San Antonio, Texas, was only 15 and playing video games, hit by a stray bullet.
I should have been there, because when you promise a kid that you're going to protect them, that's a promise.
So, yeah, that was a clip from ABC News. And again, that was 5 months ago. They were talking about an astronomical rise in numbers with gun violence. So a lot of people talk about open carry as being a factor. I see that we've lost Keelan. Hopefully, we'll be able to get him back on. But open carry, concealed carry. Melissa, do you feel like that has an impact on these numbers? Is it legislation that
Um, that
will help us to get those numbers down? Tell me your thoughts.
So definitely, that is a definite factor. How big of a factor that is, I don't know, but I can opinionate that that is a large factor when it comes to, the contributing to the crime in all of the urban or suburban areas. Definitely open carry. In Texas, I know that it's a huge issue there. I used to live there. A lot of carry, everybody carry. It's open carry. And so you can go back to the issue with the young man that was shot by a neighborhood, Trayvon. Think about it. I mean, you got a man who is not a policeman who shot Trayvon because he wants to police the area. I think his issue was, oh, I can carry a gun, and I can, he became his own police because he thought, oh, okay, well, I can carry a gun. So just carrying a gun itself can put people or the wrong person on a level where they do not need to be. Do you know what I mean? Um,
Absolutely.
I want to reflect back to there was an incident in Jackson, and I won't mention a name, but a young lady was driving on the freeway with her 15-year-old son and was shot by another young lady. Now I don't know if it was road rage or I don't know the precedents before that of that, but I do know that her shooting that she had a gun. I mean, what gave her the right to shoot a person? Because if you were cut off by, what I mean, by someone, you have a gun, so you feel like, oh, I got, like the movie back in the day, I got the juice, you know what I mean? And so I think
Absolutely.
it gives you something, you know what I mean? So I just feel like, yeah, legislation has a lot to do with it. There's a lot of things that they can do for this. They can be very creative, but they want to please a certain group of people. So therefore, we have these guns that are out there that are, we already had it out there that was illegally, and now we have it legally, open carry. Come on.
Melissa, but let
Yes.
me ask you this. What about those people who, now I'm definitely not against open carry, and I'm not saying that um you know because everyone should not be allowed to carry. And we have some people that carry illegally. We have children carrying guns. But
Mhm.
what about those people who are they go get the proper training, education, and maybe they have been victimized. And so then now I want to protect myself. What about those people who open carry that say, look, we're living in a time that I can't even walk out my house without possibly being robbed. So what about those people? So when
Now,
we look at
Joanna,
open carry, we just have to look at it from every different angle. When we talk about open carry.
so that's what I was mentioning with the legislation. There are a lot of things they can do. They can be creative, and I'm pretty sure there are people in the room who are mentioning things that could help a situation in that situation. So we have people who are going through the proper channels who are carrying the gun. Let's give them education on it, on how to make sure that we're not abusing our power or abusing the usage of this gun or having the gun in your possession, or maybe and this may be a little bit far-fetched, but this is where I'm coming from, a psychological assessment for those who are going through the proper channels, maybe a psychological assessment. I'm just trying to throw things out there, but anything, something, because what if you have someone, what if it's you do have someone who are going through the proper channels, who are doing the right thing, they want to protect themselves, but they have an underlying psychological issue. You know what I mean? So you have that. And what if you have someone who don't have an underlying psychological issue, but is going through postpartum depression, going through some other issue, psychological issue that's, it's not a mental issue, but it's an issue. It's a mental issue, but it's not an issue that is like a permanent defect. What if you have that? So yeah, maybe legislation can say, okay, open carry is fine. So we go through the proper channels, but let's add another factor. Let's let them go through a psychological assessment every year. Do you know what I mean? To make sure that these people are, they're taking the necessary precautions. If I am doing the right thing, I'm driving in my car, I got my gun, and I'm cool. I'm a cool person, you know. But what if I was going through something in my life that caused me to be frustrated and stressed? And I've been there many times, which has caused me to pop off on someone with my mouth. What if I'm going through that? And I'm a normal person like anybody with open carry, and someone says something to me, and then I got the juice, I got the gun, and I just want the first thing I do, and that's not my normal character, but because I'm going through something, this is what happens. I'm just saying these are just scenarios that I have seen and that can happen. And I just feel like legislation can probably add a couple of things when it comes to, it's just so easy to go out there and do and get your gun, which is, I find I agree with that. People who have guns, there's nothing wrong with that, with having the gun.
Right.
There's something wrong with the abuse of power, how you
Well,
use it,
I
when you
guess what
use it.
I'm saying too is how can legislator stop that abuse of power? Because let's say this, I can go and register to purchase a gun, and they can check my criminal history. No criminal history, not even a speeding ticket. And like you said, one day all out the blue, I'm on the interstate, something's on my mind, I'm having some issues in my life, and somebody pulls in front of me, and I got the juice, and I just click. So really, there's nothing. I'm not saying there's nothing. I guess I shouldn't say there's nothing they can't do, but how much more can they give, or what can they do to? Because I guess what I'm saying too, we've seen a lot of people who walk around every day, seem like they're okay. Maybe family members we know of,
Yeah,
friends, and one day they just lose it. How
yeah.
there's no way to stop that.
There's no way to stop it. There's no 100% to this, but I'm saying to just put in an effort to go. You know, so say for instance, we know that there's no way to stop it completely, right?
Right.
But what if there is a factor they put in there to have psychological assessments along with gun laws every year, every 6 months? You know what I mean? What if they did that and it decreased the amount of road rage killings, decreased the amount of murders, you know what I mean? What if it helped? What if it helped? It would not hurt at all.
No,
um
I have to
so
agree
there's
with that.
Yeah, so I know that it's not 100%. Nothing really is 100%, but it's an effort, and I just feel like when it comes to legislative laws and issues, there are a lot of people up there making decisions that are not here in the real world, not seeing this. You know what I mean? There are a lot of them. Not all of them, but a lot of them that their mind is on the fact that, hey, I'm a political person. I was groomed to run for this office, and who cares about the issues? I mean, I know the issues and I know how to use them to my advantage, but they don't really know the issues. You have to step in my shoes and walk in my shoes to know the real issues, or to real, you know what I mean? So yeah, you're right. I agree with you, and I am on both sides, and if that makes sense, I'm on both sides. I do not carry a gun. Because that's my preference. But I am not against anyone who does. But I do feel like there should be more things, like I said, put in place for a person to be able to be approved. And one of them could be a psychological assessment every 6 months. One of them could be that.
So one of the things for me, one of the areas where I feel like legislation could play a part is the fact that redlining exists. So as we look at the congressional lines being drawn, that is something that impacts something such as redlining. And when I say redlining and the discriminatory lending practices are associated with the current increased rate of the firearm violence. Poverty and concentration of disadvantage are also associated with firearm violence because of the interaction of these factors with the racist redlining housing practices. So it's like the system is doing what it was set up to do, which is group a certain group of people together. And among poverty, there's a certain mindset that also develops. I am a person who kind of sits in the center of that. I don't believe that because of poverty that gives me the green light to participate in anything, but also because of the structure of capitalism. And in addition to a particular mindset, in addition to the lack of access to better education, it plays a part. So that takes us to Mr. Sanders. How are you doing?
I'm all right. How are you doing?
Doing great. So I would love for you to speak to the congressional district lines, first of all, as well as most people are paying attention to the congressional lines, but I like for you to also remind people that the state lines for the state districts are also being redrawn. So can you speak to that?
Well, after the census, all of the district lines, not only the congressional for federal, because that's the most pressing. Everybody's talking about federal elections now because that's what's on the table. But you also have to deal with the state Senate and House or the legislative races or districts that need to be redrawn because of census, as well as your supervisors districts, and your city council wards. All of them will have to be looked at and in terms of the population and knowing and seeing if there need to be any adjustments made. We know that from the census that Mississippi lost population.
Right,
One thing that I look at, I've been questioning the motive of the senators. In the past, Mississippi has been under the Civil Rights Voting Rights Act. And once the Republican administration and control, they decided not to reauthorize it to the full extent. Now
right,
they have put some things in place, and but it's still not where it should be. And when I talk about the Voter Rights Act and civil rights, what it is that's put in place where we don't where whomever is in charge does not draw regressive district lines, meaning that. Uh, if and we'll look at that with the population of the state and in each district, let's just say at the bare minimum, each congressional district at this point only had about 30% African American population. Well, if they drew the lines and doing that, they could not go below 30% with withdrawing new lines. But what we're facing right now is with the state as a whole losing population, we have to redraw the lines. But one thing that people not looking at the who what was the major number or what population was truly affected. And when you look at in Mississippi, we actually lost more white population than
absolutely,
minority population.
absolutely,
And in Mississippi, when you look at those numbers, so I scratch my head when I look at the Senate when they proposed their district lines, and on all of them they said that they the deviation was no more than 1% here, 1% there, so therefore it shouldn't be any real change. Well, the problem is when you lose population, especially if you lose white population, that means that the minority population in all of the districts should increase, not remain the same. And so
absolutely.
it's about control. And so we're dealing with that not only with our legislators who have to redraw the congressional lines, but we're going to run into that same problem when it's time for them to redraw their lines when it comes to the House and the Senate.
So one of the things that you mentioned, Keelan, was the fact that we have this reduction in population in the state of Mississippi. If you listen to the news, what one would believe is the only place where those numbers are really reducing is Jackson, Mississippi. And I think that that is to make it much more acceptable as these lines are being drawn and curved a certain way. And people don't seem to realize that Mississippi, the state as a whole, is one of the only two states in the Mid South that is not increasing in population. It's a constant decrease. Alabama, increase. Mississippi and Louisiana, decrease. And Louisiana is much more understandable because of the impact from the hurricanes and everything that go on there. So, what is it that is being done that, to your knowledge, I know that you're not the executive director currently, but to your knowledge, what is being done by the Democratic Party to help educate the community? Because another issue that we have is black and Democrat are synonymous in the United States. So as Mississippi has this increasing almost 40%, according to the census of Mississippi's population is black, the largest percentage in the country. So do you think that there is potentially an intentional effort for people not to recognize these numbers in Mississippi?
There's always been that effort. If you look at it from the when it was time when the our founding fathers, when they was constructing the Constitution of the United States, they still was not counting us as a whole vote or even a legitimate vote. So it's all about the numbers. It's all about control, and these things have been going on since the beginning. Now we're dealing with a group. Now they're trying, because they don't want to lose any of their control. They want to try to put the districts in a much palatable a way that they can work with. But if you look at the numbers, we've been when I was executive director with the Democratic Party, we was fighting then. Unfortunately, our legislators, when it was Democratic control, and that's another story altogether. They punted. They did not even draw the lines that when they was responsible for doing so, and they allowed a federal judge to do so, to redraw the lines not once but twice. And
Mhm.
when you look at that, that also helped erode the 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 influence that everyone should have in all districts across the state. Uh, but because of the powers that be and what's in place and about control, and we don't have people who are out there trying to educate and make sure that everyone is aware of what's happening, it kind of fall by the wayside. And that's what's going on now. The Senate spent all this time, and they presented their map for redistricting, and you didn't hear much about it, just a little bit, but not much. Now, I took issue with it when I first looked at all four districts. They want to ensure that one congressional district, which is the second, still maintained its 60+% of African American population. But
Mhm.
the other three congressional districts, they want to leave them at less than 30%. That's hard to believe that African Americans or minorities in the state makes up only 30% of each of these congressional districts when blacks alone make up 40%. And if you look at the total numbers as it is now, I want to say the white population of the state is only like 55%. So if it's only 55% as a whole across the state, how could three congressional districts still be 70% white?
Absolutely. So what efforts do you know of are taking place so that we can, again, I feel like if you want to talk about storming the Capitol, not to do what they did in DC, but actually storming to participate as the legislature session actually begins. I feel like we definitely need to be there. What efforts are being made so that people can really understand? It's almost like you want to grab people and just and just shake them, because how many different ways can we say this for it to be understandable? We have these so-called conservatives that are in charge of judges being in certain places. So as we talk about legislation and as we talk about violence, how can we not see that all of this ties together? The judges who are appointed are a big factor in what programs are put in place so that we can mitigate some of these situations, as opposed to continuously growing the prison population, school to prison pipeline. Your thoughts?
Well, uh, it's always about controlling and controlling the numbers. And as long as the those who are in control or in power or potentially be elected and control the playing field, they can always lay out and put the blueprint out that they want to have. And unfortunately, that's what we're dealing with. When you look at the numbers as it is now. Now, today was the first day of the legislative cycle, or the legislative session. So with that, all of our legislators from across the state, they all convened today. So now they're actually getting caught up and brought up to speed on everything that the subcommittees did and approved, so they can bring it to the full body to begin discussion and to see what avenues they are to put it in place. Honestly, at this point, it's not as easy task. It's more so if you're in tune or if you want to be involved, your ears will always be up and pay attention to what's going on. But the average voter do not pay attention to redistricting. The only thing they pay attention to is when it's time to go vote, who they need to vote for. And that's only one aspect of the whole being in tune of the political process. And that's where it falls on the Democratic Party, it falls on our elected officials to begin going into the neighborhoods that they represent and educating their constituents on this process, on everything that they need to know, and why it's important for them to speak up in terms of the district lines and not to be taken for granted. Do you know that 100 people from the Jackson area can call a state legislator up in Northeast Mississippi and just say that they're a concerned citizen, and they will get the message. They will not necessarily know if they're the constituents for them or not, but because they're receiving calls from concerned citizens, they will pay attention. And that's what it's going to take. It's going to take the efforts of all of us, of the especially our people who are in place to do this, to make sure that the masses are educated, that they know what's going on when a vote is getting ready to take place, when a committee is getting ready to listen to it and get input and have active and input in terms of for this process.
Is this not already happening in Jackson, Mississippi?
When you say
Everything that the subcommittee.
when you say is this not happening? You mean the legislative session being open, or
No, educating the constituents. Isn't that
well,
happening?
to a certain degree, it's happening because we do have several organizations, 501c3s, that do quote unquote voter education. I always hold on my air quotes because I don't want to knock anybody, and in this day and time, the truth is seen as a negative thing. So I'll choose my words carefully here. The only thing that a lot of people do who have these organizations as it pertains to voter education is register more people to vote and say you need to vote, go vote, Republican here, switch out, that type of thing. Not that they get into Republican versus Democrat because that'll go against whatever, with their 501c3 status, but there's no real in-depth education going on. But even if it were, here's the problem. Well, let me back up. Let me not say there's no education going on. There is some, but there's not enough. But even if there was one on every block, will we participate? Will we participate? Because you can go to YouTube and learn. So I went to YouTube University to learn quite a bit as it pertains to the redistricting process a few years ago, as it pertains to redlining. Go ahead, Keelan. You had a point.
Well, I'll say this: the average, and I always say the average voter does not think about redistricting. The average organization, when it comes to voter education, does not talk about redistricting. Redistricting only takes place once every 10 years. And when that takes place, the window is so short in terms of the fighting. Basically, you're gonna end up in court when it's all said and done. The when this current session ends, I guarantee. Well, I shouldn't say I guarantee, but I believe that it's going to end up in court because there are going to be a lot of people that are not happy with the process. If you look at just before we get on this show, before we came on the air today, I saw where my frat brothers over in Atlanta, over in Georgia, has now filed a lawsuit against the legislators for their drawing of the district lines, and it's been regressive, and it's going to take organizations all over to really pay attention to this redistricting, take a more active role, and also be ready to be plaintiffs in the case of when it's time to go. Because we know, with looking at who's in control and what they're trying to do, that they are not going to draw lines that should be representative of the state and the people that they truly represent. Because if it does, then they will lose a lot of seats.
Absolutely. I think that the fact that we just have this mindset of reactivity or no activity, I can't even say reactive versus proactive. It's more of no activity versus and reactivity than anything at this point. People, we are literally accepting, it's like an acceptable death right in your face. You're just laying there and taking it. Something that you actually could participate in. So I know no other way other than to say what it actually is. That's why I don't get into the "it is what it is" statement when it comes to these things, because it is what we allow it to be and it is what we make it. So how is it that we can make people understand, instead of you going to complain about the fact that my child is supposed to be able to read at this grade level, but my child can't read at all. My child can't walk home without seeing all this blight. From the state, county, city level, how can we make people understand that we need to not only be educated but participate in the process on local and state levels, more so than only looking at who's the president and complaining for 4 years? And that's one of the reasons why it's hard for me to get into Democrat versus Republican, because that's the mindset of everybody. It becomes like a game fight as opposed to actually about subject matter.
Mm-hmm.
Eh,
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
You
Eh,
know what? Before Keenan answers, because I know you guys are, when it comes to politics, you're much more expert than I. I'm not at all. But from a constituent point of view, from someone who does not know a whole lot, you just asked, how can we get it over? Yeah, I feel like the education, like you say, the 503Cs should definitely be getting it out there, but not just getting it out there, but breaking it down, giving dates. And it doesn't, and you can't say, oh, okay, I'm not going to babysit you. I'm not going to, you might have to babysit some people. I'm speaking from my own point of view. So if I were a 503C and knew the knowledge that you guys knew and
I'm
had,
sorry, Melissa. We got some feedback going on.
I'm sorry, I don't know. Can you hear? Maybe my, I don't know. But can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so if it from a constituent point of view, someone who doesn't have a whole lot of knowledge when it comes to when the meetings, what you mentioned, Mr. Keenan, that are going on. Today marks the first day of legislative, whatever you just mentioned. Um, how would we know that? How would we redistricting seem important to me? Why would it be important to me? You have to tell. That has to be educated to the constituents. They need to know why it's important. They need to know what to do in order to make sure it is it serves their community. Do you know what I mean? So that's what we need to know. And we don't know any of that. I was just on the phone today with an advocate. I have a son who is disabled. And one of the other mothers whose son is disabled, whose children are disabled, called me to give me information on meetings that are going on and that are coming up. She called me. I had no idea. I'm in Vegas. I've only been here a year. And so I didn't know where the meetings were, how to advocate for my son, how to fix a situation that in this area there's almost no help for disabled kids when in terms of visual impairment or hearing impairment. So She told me about that. There's no flyers, there's nothing, and I've been searching since I've been here, looking and asking doctors and asking and getting no answers anywhere. But another mother called me today. Had no idea how she got my number. But I have been around, so I've been asking around. So maybe she got my number that way. But another mother had to tell me this, and so now she's got me very interested. I wrote dates down, and I'm definitely gonna, meet them. But it takes that. I feel like, you say that there are 503Cs that are in the area that are there to help constituents, and they're usually only to help them vote. Oh, this is the voting day, come vote. Yeah, I know the date to vote, but who do I vote for, and what does that person stand for, and what are these issues about, and what other things that I need to know, as far as to make changes happen. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And I personally believe, Melissa, that even though I mentioned the 501c3s and
Yeah,
nonprofit organizations,
yeah.
I think that to lean on them is the same as us leaning on elected officials to do
Uh,
things that we as citizens can do.
yeah,
Because to break it down and make it palatable, I think is actually what you said. That's absolutely a necessity. The NAACP is one of those organizations that does have workshops. They do training on that. And they have that. But what I notice is not a lot of people attend. So people have their personal preferences, just like if you have an event in a church. So the best thing to do is for a group of citizens, each and every time that I've had a situation where I needed guidance through the school system, I've called you. So if you know you have people in that circle, it's for citizens to take it upon themselves to form these coalitions amongst each other to really make these things happen. And I think until we actually start doing these things and really taking control of the situation, that we're going to continue in this hamster wheel of finger pointing and blaming. But to be educated on it is absolutely a necessity. We're in the
it
21st
is.
century with so much accessible at our fingertips, but sometimes it can become information overload,
Yeah,
which is a
sometimes it can.
deterrent. So, Joanna, you have worked in the criminal justice system for quite some time. What
Yes.
Tell me your thoughts on this.
My mic, I'm sorry, Felicia, but my mic was off. I couldn't hear anything at first, so I had to leave and come back in. I didn't hear anything you are. I could just see lip movement.
Okay, yeah. So what we're asking is tell me your thoughts on how we can get more people involved in the process. Just knowing and being educated on something as simple as when the legislative session opens, what the subcommittees are meeting about, how people can actually be a part of those meetings, which ones they can, as a constituent,
Right.
actually listen in on.
Well,
What can we do
we
to get people
always,
engaged?
I'm sorry, like we always discuss, people who are in position, who are in these leadership positions, need to do their job. And so if once people are elected for these positions, like the legislators, um, just your judges, just different people, I feel like that they should still work. You should let people know what's going on in the community. Still get out and knock on doors. Get on the radio. Let the public know what's going on, what they need to do as citizens. Just as Mrs. Jones was saying, what the legislature can do different as far as the open carry. Well, they should get out in the community, ask people, the public, what do you think? Get ideas from the citizens. And so I think those things will help educate the public on different things that's going on, meetings that's coming up, so they can give their input.
Absolutely. And I just like to point out that you all have been tearing some names up on here, even with right up under the face. It's Miss Rose, not Miss Jones. Look, and I don't know how many different names Keelan has been called tonight, but that's okay. We're gonna move on past it. I know all of y'all got Felicia though. How about that? So, but yeah, absolutely, Joanna. I think that we as a people don't make a demand. Keelan pointed out earlier that in northern Mississippi, oh, we got an echo. We got an echo for somebody. Sound like somebody's watching wrestling. You mute the mic. But yeah, I think that like in northern
Not
Mississippi,
me.
you pointed out, I think we can clearly identify what the majority of their population that was willing to come together to make that demand on, their elected officials. I think we as Black people are going to have to start understanding that some of the taxation without representation that we face is because we don't make a demand in any shape, form, or fashion.
What?
Keelan, do you know? Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead. What were you saying?
No, go ahead.
What I was gonna, one thing I was gonna point out is that when we start talking about redistricting and the lines, a lot
Hmm.
of things get muddied or the whole intent. When they draw congressional district lines, that they're supposed to group like-minded people or the area of what your of what the needs are.
Hmm.
And for if before Mississippi lost the population that did, Mississippi used to have 5 congressional districts.
Yes.
Jackson, Mississippi was in the fourth congressional district, which ran basically from Jackson all the way down to Southwest Mississippi. The second congressional district was primarily the Delta.
Hmm.
Now, but because the Delta kept losing population, the district lines kept coming further and further south to take in the African American population to keep the numbers up. But the interests that the people in Jackson have are not the same interests of the people in the Delta because of the rural areas and what's needed in terms of the support. But now that we're all together, it's a different story. But yet, it's still they don't want to draw congressional lines that actually put like, and when I say like, I don't want to say like-minded people, but the interest of the area. You have more urban areas than rural areas, and so if you have more urban areas than rural areas, the urban areas that have a different need than the rural areas.
Absolutely.
So those are the things that we really that need to be taken into consideration and also brought to the attention when they're looking at drawing these lines or redrawing the lines that are currently there. It's a lot of work to be done, and when it comes to educating, again, this only takes place once every 10 years. So people are not paying attention to it. They're not thinking about the redistricting. If they were thinking about redistricting, then they would be very concerned when it comes to making sure that their census numbers are counted and that everybody in their area is counted, because that's truly how federal dollars and money is delegated or spent or authorized in terms of knowing the population of those areas. And so it starts with the census numbers and being accounted. And then it moves on or matriculates through the system when it comes to using the census numbers to draw the lines to see what's going on and go from there. So it's a lot of different things, or you say it's a lot many layers to this onion that we're dealing with, but a lot of people just don't want to deal with the onion. They just want to deal with the superficial top layer and say,
Yes.
okay, well, I'm registered to vote when I need to go vote, and long as I know that I've done my job,
Absolutely.
everything else.
Absolutely. But again, right now, anyone who's going along with the things that the Republican Party has been putting out, some things are not necessarily about party, especially for us. It's just right is right and wrong is wrong. When you have a group that is banding together like the Legion of Doom for so much wrong, how can you stand on it simply, hey, I'm a Republican or a so-called conservative? Because there's nothing conservative about what they propose. Listen, before we go any further, actually, let me get that in because we're actually about to end. But we want to give a shout out to our sponsors. Vintage Barbie Boutique. Vintage Barbie Boutique is a boutique for curvy fashion where sassy meets classy. They have some of the best, baddest, trendiest items. You can reach them at vintagebarbie.btq.com. That's vintagebarbie.btq.com. They're located at 900 East County Line Road, Suite 250 in Ridgeland, Mississippi, upstairs right above Party City. Or you can reach her on Instagram at Vintage Barbie 2. Vintage Barbie 2. Hit her up. I'm telling you, you will not be disappointed. And if you're in the market for a house, you guys need to look out for Next Level Real Estate. Owner, broker, Shadow Robinson, they are kicking it over there, you guys. They work hard for you at 5350 Executive Place, Suite 1 in Jackson, Mississippi. Give them a call, 769-251-0856. Or you can reach them by email, next level real estate llcms at gmail.com. Or check out their website, nextlevelrealestatems.com. They will work hard for you. Those ladies over there don't take no for an answer. They're going to get you financed and funded. I want to thank our guests for this week, Miss Melissa Rose, Mr. Keelan Sanders, Joanna, and I thank you for joining us. And
Definitely.
in closing, is there anything that you want to tell the people, Melissa? We can't hear you.
I'm sorry, I had been muted. I do want to reflect on what we initially were talking about. I'm a counselor, so coming from the counseling point of view, we're going through the pandemic, we're going through a lot of things in our lives. But if we can just remember to think about ourselves, think about our well being, attend to our personal needs, such as eating right, exercising, getting the sun, vitamin D, the vitamins that you need. As a Black person, we definitely need the vitamin D. Just getting the things that we need. That may sound like it's little and not enough, but it is a lot. It's a big road to actually making it better for yourself. And if each one does this, I mean, we can all work together.
Thank
That's all
you
I got.
so much. Thank you. Keelan, anything you want to say in closing?
Just to remind the listening audience that uh, the legislative cycle began. The legislative session started today. The subcommittees will start meeting. Contact your legislator. Get involved. Get active. Let your voice be known and tell us that these are things that we have concerns with and we need addressed and they need to be taken care of this year and don't need to have a federal judge to decide who's going to draw the lines. But the good thing about it is at least we have some new federal judges that possibly would get the case if it goes to them, and we would have better lines or more equal representative lines once drawn, especially with looking at the numbers, the population of the state.
Absolutely. You guys, I want you to tune in next week. We're going to have some exciting guests on. It's all about the money. We're going to be learning about credit. We're going to be learning about day trading. And after that, we're going to have a battle of the sexes on the after hours. Tune in to the point next week and every Tuesday, 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. I also want to give one quick shout out to Day Senior Care LLC. This is a professional non-medical senior care. Services include transportation, errands, light housekeeping, laundry care, personal hygiene assistance, transfers, companionship, meal preparation, and medication reminders. If you love your loved ones, if they need that help, give them a call, you guys. Located at 2622 Sutherland Street in Jackson, Mississippi. Give them a call at 769-218-0375. Want to
Felicia,
say yes.
quickly, I just want to let everybody know.
It's
Please
9 o'clock.
don't. Oh,
We got to close out. Talk to
okay.
y'all later. Hey, we're gonna put it on the web, put it on our Facebook
Yes,
page.
put it on
Follow
our
us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. Peace and love, everyone.
Bye.